language, buddy.
I,
Chauncey back to the Eagles. You're speaking my love language.
I felt like just him going back there, they needed him so badly this past year.
We
And
need a
just
safety
to
help. Yeah.
and to bring him back, he already knows the team, he knows
Right.
their system, and you don't have to rely on picking right in the draft. That now opens them up to, in the draft, being able to be more flexible, get a wider range of
Yeah.
players, pick the guys that are falling. I just love that for him.
I'm excited too. I was reading when I got home from work that they're not out of the Justin Simmons market either. So we might have a brand new tandem at safety, which be elite. And Chauncey can play the slot too, which they cut Maddox. So I'm over the moon so far with the Eagles. Howie does it again, man. Give me Saquon. I got to get a jersey now. Got to get that Kelly Green Saquon jersey. It's got to happen. But
That's
welcome
be
in.
One of the hot sellers.
Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. There's the cold open. Talking about the Eagles. Koopa just speaking my love language. But we're going to get this party started. And, of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't start it without the intro video. Got to feature Fizzle, man.
40 chess. Yeah. 40 chess. 40 chess. Let's get it.
Yo, is that T-Dog?
40 chess. 40 chess. Hey. 40 chess. This a trade show. Patreon where the trades go. Tap in and watch. That's what you came for. Ain't gotta say my name. They know my name, bro.
What's good, man?
We got McNutted in ATM. Always start off the show with a trade from them. You should always make sure that your trade is in. Patreon, why not be a Patreon? Know you wish you could spend every day with them. Tap in and say what you gonna say with them. South Harmon can fill up a stadium. Next time you log in, make sure that you bring a friend. We about to kick off, let the day begin. Go follow the socials. 40 Chess FF is posted. If your trade is an F, you get roasted. Go like and subscribe for the crew. Apple, Spotify, and the YouTube. You know Koopa got the WoRP too. Let us give you a walkthrough. 40 Chess. This is 40 Chess.
And you do know that Koopa got that WoRP tool. He's going to give you a walkthrough tonight. Rookie WoRP. I'm joined by Koopa. We had to do this special live. First time in history I think 4D's ever been on a Tuesday night. We're making history, Coop. Tuesday night live stream for everybody. No pre-record. Here we are live at it. Rookie Pick WoRP. But first off, man, Coop, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. It's been busy the past couple weeks, but I'm excited to be able to finally launch the Rookie WoRP. I've actually kind of been sitting on it a little bit here, just making sure that I liked how I fully had it set up and everything. So, but I wanted to make sure to get it done far enough before the NFL draft that everyone can start using it and really get used to it before you're on the clock right after the NFL draft and somebody's giving you that offer, the player, and you're like, crap, what is this guy worth in terms of rookie pick? Do I want the vet? Do I want the rookie? Where's my team at?
Definitely.
So I wanted to make sure everyone had some time, get used to it, get familiarized.
Let's dive right in.
We all know that it's very important.
We got you up, buddy. The WoRP tool live and in action with Rookie Pick WoRP. Love it. So explain to me, Coop, how, just the basics, I mean, we don't have to go too deep into the woods here, but how is the Rookie Pick WoRP calculated? Like, what is it pulling data from? We're obviously looking at the new multi-year graph. If you guys aren't familiar, that was added last week or 2 weeks ago at this point. So we got multi-year WoRP in now. So we're looking at a 5-year sample size. But now you have this nice, fancy gray line of Rookie Pick WoRP. And surprisingly, I thought it was going to be a lot worse, Coop, but it's holding serve with tight ends. It's holding serve with tight ends.
This one here, I'll talk about it a little bit, and then I'll talk about the league that I have up. But the Rookie Pick WoRP, it comes... It is calculated based on the first 2 years of a player into the NFL. So the reason that I did that was because you're looking at more of a long-term value play when you're looking at a rookie anyway.
Right.
You aren't going to you aren't using a rookie pick to draft somebody and only caring about their week one output like you are with like if you're getting a veteran. And so WoRP kind of looks at it's better suited for, hey, I'm trying to win right now. And so the way I designed the Rookie Pick WoRP is to help you figure out what can I trade this pick for to help me win right now. And so it's that combination of the first 2 years of a rookie, which helps bring it up a little bit. If I did it just based off of the 1 year and I didn't include the second year in the calculation, you'd see like the 101 is probably like down here at like the 1.2 range, and you end up seeing like the rookie is like the 50th, 60th, depending on the league. It might be the 100th best player on the board, like. And so I didn't want to launch it like that, knowing that, hey, we're using this for a lot of dynasty.
Right.
The redraft community doesn't care about a rookie pick. They can totally ignore the rookie picks entirely.
Which
but for dynasty,
you see that in Underdog, don't you? Right, like where we would draft him in a dynasty draft. Every time you do one of those Underdog best balls, you're like, I can't believe that Caleb Williams is going here. I can't believe Marvin Harrison's still available. Like it's that kind of thing. But it's that switch between redraft and dynasty where you got to switch that mindset, and it's what we tell people all the time when they're team building or we do a team review or anything like that. If you're relying on rookies to be those hammers year one for you, it's not probably going to happen. It's not.
Yeah,
they're very rare.
Yeah, we've seen in the past. I've seen a lot of stuff from different content creators talking about, hey, rookies are really only useful like towards the back half of the season, and even then, it's kind of iffy whether they are useful for you. So if you're talking about a team built on rookies, you probably aren't in the position to make the playoffs in order to take advantage of those weeks towards the end where the rookies are starting to come into form.
Prime example, right? Jonathan Taylor a few years ago when he was a rookie. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Great prospect coming in. Great landing spot. Trash the first part of the year. Absolutely. People panic selling like, oh, this guy's garbage. Can't do anything. And then the back half you saw he was highly usable, right? So if you were just to sort the week 7 onward, he would have been fine. But weeks 1 through 6 were horrible. Horrible for you.
And so the reason I pulled up this league specifically is this was one of the ones that I was testing against. This is your standard 12 teams start 10 PPR league. Nothing extra fancy. I think it is a 6 point per passing touchdown. Otherwise, it's entirely vanilla. And I did try it out, and I was like looking at the rookie values and everything. Jonathan Taylor, that 2020 season, that was his rookie year, he got 1.046 WoRP or something like that.
So
and he was the best rookie of the year.
Even worse than what you said earlier, right?
Even worse than what I said earlier. And so like he would be down here, and he would be like running back 28, and he was the best rookie in the class for that year in terms of WoRP value. So it just accentuates, hey, you need to be looking at rookies in a long-term value, and that's what I'm attempting to help show here with the value that I'm putting on the rookie picks, and the fact that I'm pulling multiple years out of all these players in order to get a better picture of, if I'm trading this guy away for a vet now, what is the actual proper worth in terms of WoRP for this guy.
Gotcha. So where's number 1 come in right now, like relative to everybody else?
So number 1 is coming in the top like 10, 15 in most leagues. I have seen some leagues where it's even more depressed down. So I've found that in a lot of lineup leagues, especially, and in shorter starter leagues, you tend to see the high value rookie picks be valued up there really highly along with a lot of the other high value players. So in this case here, so what I'll do is I'll go over to the table actually, and we've got pick 13 in this league. Is in terms of WoRP value, we have the 13th best is the rookie 101. But if we're looking at okay, how do I want to utilize these rookie picks for my team? Right now, I'm not saying, hey, if you're holding on to the 101, Caleb Williams, slot him in right here at this two warp value. What this is for is, okay, what do I need warp equivalent for this year in order to match the rookie 101 in terms of value to my team? So if I can, let's pretend you're a savant, you can perfectly predict where everyone's going to be this coming year.
Right. Who's going to finish as the best rookie, etc. Yeah. Right.
Well, who's going to finish the best as like players this upcoming season?
Right.
So if you could get yourself a top 5 quarterback, a top 3 wide receiver, top 3 running back, or top tight end, in this league, it would be worth sending the 101 for that guy. Just no question about it. Just send it. You're getting the warp value out of this pick, even if that player come next year is worth nothing because they retire.
Gotcha. Yep. That would make sense. If you had that foresight, right?
If you have that foresight. Obviously we don't. So the way that you're going to want to be playing this as you get closer to your rookie drafts is it's going to be very dependent on where your team is. So if I am a contender and I'm holding the 101 right now, I don't want to rely on the 101 pick being the guy that actually sends my team over the top. But if I could take this 101 and maybe you want to take a bet that Tyreek Hill is going to be the wide receiver 1 again next year. And dynasty-wise, we know that you can send the 101 for Tyreek Hill, and most people will take that. You can usually even get a little bit of plus added on. You know that warp-wise, you are winning with that deal, as long as Tyreek Hill is that top 3 wide receiver. If he's not that top 3 wide receiver, then maybe you've lost. And so that's kind of where you have to... You always have that when you're playing the trading game. You don't know for sure what's going to happen in the future, but if you project and you project properly and you make the same kind of bet over and over, eventually you're going to win.
So a good question then would be, you talked about top 3 wide receivers, etc. That's like one, the Tyreek Hill situation. Yes, if you're for a 1-year bet, right, you could be 1,000% come out on it. Where you traded the 101 for Tyreek Hill, and for 2024, if everything broke right and Tyreek Hill didn't get injured and still repeated, you made money, right? Like that was a savvy move. The downside is though, like for a guy like Tyreek Hill, right, if he gets hurt because of his age, misses 6 games, whatever it is, you've lost catastrophically, right? You're going to lose in warp. And then you're going to lose in long-term dynasty value. Like, we know that. So what about the scenarios, though, if you're trading almost 1-for-1, right? Because there are people out there who will be like CeeDee Lamb or the 101, right? Mm-hmm. You got a guy who's number 1, number 2 in warp last year. Could he repeat this year? Yeah, very likely. What happens to CeeDee Lamb if he gets injured or something? Probably dynasty value doesn't change very much at all, does it, Coop? Like, it just...
I don't think so.
Kind of treads and stays the same. So not only would you win on warp, you're going to win in the long term on the dynasty, even with a so-so down season. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase might fit that category as well. Mm-hmm. I think the interesting one is like how risky you want to be with those. You get past that top 3, right? Do I want to trade a potential Caleb or Marvin Harrison Jr. for A.J. Brown? Right? Could you make out? Yeah, I think Rookie WoRP will show you that, yes, you could make out in that, but you have to build in the dynasty value then lost potential, right? You got to build that risk in. I think that's a great way to look at it right there.
Yeah. So you have to bring in that risk value. And we've been looking at the top end of rookie picks right now, the 101, the 102, like we're up in that range. I want to bring us down. I want to go to the complete opposite end at the moment. So we're going to go down. You'll notice at pick 29, there's not a pick 30. Now, why isn't there a pick 30? It's because pick 30 is the point where there's no... I'll do that for you, Barry. Take the tight end graph off for you. So at pick 30, there is no more rookie picks that are worth a positive WoRP value. We're looking at a WoRP. A WoRP tends to help everyone be positive. You can see here we have a couple quarterbacks that end up negative right off the end when we get like quarterback 49, and you'll see that if I move over in the running backs and receivers, a couple guys end up going negative on you. But the rookie picks, they're entirely looking at the rookies. And it happens to be that if you are counting the rookies that end up getting started in a lineup league, you end up with positive WoRP. Because we tend to know when to finally start those guys, or more than likely, we actually wait too long to start them. They have a good game, and then we go, oh, the rookie has finally figured out how to get target share in this offense or get enough rushes or whatever, and now we play them a week late. But when we're looking at this, pick 29, that's the 305 in this league because it's a 12 team. After that point, those picks are essentially worthless. Drafting players past that point. Now, I will caveat this here in a second. Drafting players past that point is not going to be a positive WoRP move. If you can trade any of those picks for anybody that you know is going to get you positive WoRP over the course of the season, that is a winning move in terms of trying to win over the course of the season. Now, we have to talk about rebuilders, because rebuilders aren't trying to win over the course of the season. They can still accumulate those thirds and fourths and accrue value there. What they are going to want to be doing is trying to trade away those picks to maybe help them move up, get them higher up this line, more towards into the picks that actually have a chance to make a difference. However, the way I've calculated the rookie WoRP, we don't have we aren't using the ADP of the draft. I'm not saying the 101 this year's 101 won't necessarily be Caleb Williams.
Right.
This year's 101 is going to be the best player from the 2024 class in terms of WoRP for your league. And so as a result, when you're talking about number 29 is the 29th best player from the class. How often do we know whether the 302 is going to be better than the 311?
Never.
Not that often.
Never.
And so the 311, I just said, hey, that pick you can just trade away willy-nilly. But the 302 might be the actual player that's not showing up on this chart, whereas the 311 might be the player that is showing up on this chart.
I get you.
But it helps give you an idea of where does that fall off? How many players are actually useful in the draft each year? In this league, it happens to be there's 29 players that within the first 2 years actually do something for your team and help it out. So if I'm looking at, okay, how many shots do I want to take? You're going to end up wasting a ton of roster spots by filling in all these third and fourth round picks, because the chance that you actually get the guy is not that great. And even in the early third, the chance that you get the guy is not that great. You're right at the fringe, the edge of rookie WoRP. And so when you're like, okay, which picks are actually worth it in this league, I'm looking at, okay, I want to get all the first round picks that I can. I want to get second round picks, and then the rest of it, not really.
Doesn't really matter, right?
Because at that point, we're already looking at if pick 24 is 0.167. If we look in the chart and we look to see what pick 24 is, it's overall ranked 214. And that's the end of the second round. So we have, if you take the rookie picks out of it, we have 190 actual players on NFL teams that you'd want over this late second round pick. Now that's a lot of players, and I'd much rather.
Yeah.
And we know that players can bounce in and out of that 190 players very easily just by circumstances changing. And I would much rather invest in getting players that are going to potentially bounce up into that range. Those are your guys like your backup quarterbacks, your backup running backs. Like we've talked about all the strategies that you can play in order to fill those roster spots with guys that are going to help your roster out later on that maybe aren't helping it now. And so you want to have those guys rostered rather than wasting it on the 15th receiver in the draft or something like that.
Right.
Because the chance that guy actually helps your team is almost nothing.
Well, here's a good example from last year, right, that people can wrap their heads around. Chase Brown was, a late second, early third rookie draft pick? I imagine for this league, if you go look at the single year, he doesn't even make the WoRP table, right? Like, he doesn't even pull up.
I betcha he does not.
And he had a 19, 20-point game, essentially, in most league scoring. But to your point, right, nobody started him that week. And then by the time you do start him, and he never really reaches that threshold for a WoRP to actually be there. Doesn't show up on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have Chase Brown. He doesn't even show up. He did not hit the a WoRP requirement of being started in enough leagues to even count.
And that's an early third-round pick that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're gonna have guys that pop on that list too. Like we think about it. Just think about last year's class, right? Puka was a undrafted, maybe a 4th or 5th round at best rookie pick. He's going to elevate and going to show up on that much higher. And it's going to push all those other picks down, right? It's going to push those late seconds down. It's going to push those those early thirds down where they're not even relevant or even showing up on the chart because you're not looking at actual rookie pick. You're looking at best player of that class, right? Just ranked 1 through 30 essentially here. For 2 years.
Yes.
2 years. A guy like that doesn't even show up. So when you're thinking about it, you're like, okay, I got this 3rd round pick. I might have a chance of hitting a fringe starter. The odds are probably 0. or just, not 0, but mathematically, Coop, they're very small. It's a decimal point percentage that you're going to be right in those ranges.
Yeah, and so what you want to do is try and roll those picks into
players,
liquid capital for the following year,
right?
Or any players that can help your team out. And the nice thing about it, if you can roll it into liquid capital, because we're in that time of year right now where we're entirely focused on the picks and the rookies. If you can roll some of these, let's say you have in this league, I have some late 3rd rounders and a 4th rounder. I'm going to try to roll it into, can I get 3rd or 4th rounders next year? Because this league I'm competing in. And so if I have the 3rd rounder, an extra 4th rounder, I can use those during the season, snag somebody that nobody saw coming, but that I lost the waiver bid on to some team who's just bidding because, I've got fab and I can try and sell this guy. And I'll reward him for that and give him this extra pick that I have because he decided to this season go, oh, you're selling the 306 for any future 3rd? Oh, what a steal. And now I have won out and they have gotten an absolute dart throw that may or may not even help their team one bit.
I think for me, like just looking at this right now, Coop, my strategy is kind of confirmed on how I like to do it, but even more so, like I want to be more aggressive in how I do this. So you're talking, let's just hypothetically say you have the 212, okay? You're on the clock at the 212. You get an offer, and a lot of us too, we just think in terms of startup capital. We think in startup capital, or we think we're trading like it's a startup. Rookie Pick WoRP over a 5-year average, taking the best 2 seasons, the best of the best, is showing me that even if I'm like right and everything fell perfectly, I'm probably still just barely holding on to an above average, above 0 WoRP player. And with all the guys that are going to come after, they have just as likely odds to be that guy or ascend, like a Puka Nacua, right? So instead of picking the 212, like to your point, Why not trade that for the 401 this year and get a third next year, or something along those lines, right? You still get your dart throw, so you're still in line with everybody else in this year. Like maybe I do hit a Puka or James Robinson back in the day, Elijah Mitchell, one of these types. I still have that capital this year, but then I'm getting that extra liquidity, that third, where that's a piece, like you said, in season. I already know 2025 draft, it's the same thing, same song and dance. But in the 24 season, I can trade that for an actual player who I could start. Like, who's actually like, okay, it's only the 189th player in WoRP, but I need a spot start from a wide receiver, a spot start from a running back, or I need that quarterback to fill an injury role, right? But you still do the 2-for-1. You still take that 212, which is probably not going to hit anyways. You're probably not going to be right on it. You get an equal dart throw chance in this class, and you get an extra piece on top. Something else that you can use. And I think a lot more people should be doing that from essentially like mid-second almost off this graph on. If it's not a top 18 player, who gives a shit? You got the same chances as the guy drafting at the 503. Like you're picking the same, essentially.
Yep.
With minor differences.
Yeah, and so I have quite a few lineup leagues. I was going through my leagues this past weekend and comparing the picks that I had to what they were worth on the tool, and noticed that I have quite a few leagues that their lineup start 10, and we have 5th round rookie picks. I am so not excited to have those 5th round rookie picks in terms of like they've never been able to use them as value. Everyone knows that you can't use them as any value. Like, all these guys is essentially a ticket to where I can't pick up anybody I want on waivers. I can only pick up a rookie, so that way I can put him on my roster, and then one of the leagues has a taxi squad, one doesn't. So the taxi squad, all right, sure, I'll fill it up with this 5th round dart throw rookie pick because I got nobody else's put on it. But then all the other players that I'm getting with these 5th round picks, like they're right at the bottom of my roster for, can I just cut this guy? Or the very next moment I see somebody on waivers who like, oh hey, this guy got injured in training camp, or he's looking better in training camp. You have some guy that signed a 1-year vet minimum deal, like, oh hey, I'll just pick this guy up to take a shot at him rather than holding on to this 5th round rookie. You're muted, Mike.
Let me put this one up on here, and then we'll see the differences, right? All right. So this is a Shit Savage. I'm pretty sure you're in this league too, Coop.
Yep.
And Adam and I have referenced this league. This is probably one of the only tight end graphs you're ever going to see that you go, oh yeah, tight ends matter in this league, and you're in it. We don't start a tight end. We have a shit ton of flex spots where tight ends can go in and tight ends get 3 points per catch, right? So WoRP-wise, they're worth it, right? Those mid-turds that you're like, I'd never draft Dallas Goedert. This league, you probably would. This league, you probably want him on your team. How does this shake out in a best ball league with this kind of format versus your vanilla lineup league? Like, the first thing that stood off the bat on being best ball is we don't ever hit, like, really zero WoRP. We go down to, if I take some of these other crappier graphs off that you don't care about, but 49th player, 0.08 WoRP. Now, it's just minuscule, but 48 players, that's 4 full rounds of rookie picks. That's a 412,
Yep. Yeah, and the interesting thing too is if you actually look to see how many rookie picks in total are still above, you get all the way out to 73 in this league.
Ooh.
So theoretically we could have a full 6-round draft, and we still would end up with guys that are going to hit your lineup at some point in the next 2 years.
Okay. Would that change your strategy at all then, being best ball, knowing that? Like in your best ball leagues versus lineup leagues with these later rookie picks?
Yeah, and it's definitely changed my strategy in terms of how I think about those later picks to a point. we kind of see a huge flattening off, especially like in this league once we get to around pick 36. So the way I'm liking to envision this is like, okay, first round, second round, third round, those are all good picks to make. Past that point, okay, now I'm starting to hit guys that they can be dropped for 1 week dart throws. And
Gotcha.
so when we're looking at, okay, these guys are, I have pick 48, the very end of the fourth round. That's somebody that dart throw is just about even. You can get 0.084 warp out of them. 0.084 warp is so minuscule that is, hey, I picked up the right tight end this week, and he managed to, in this league, he managed to get 2 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown. Because in this league, that's a whole like 13 points or something, and that's hitting your lineup.
Right.
So you have to draw the line at a certain point. For me in this one, it's okay, I see it going flat right at the end of the third. So this league, I want all the way through the third round. Whereas we were just talking in that lineup league, even the 212, I'm like, not really excited about this one. But I've noticed this with a lot of best ball leagues, is that they tend to go much longer. I was just looking at for fun the shit IDP 101 that we did, and it says like there's 140 something rookie picks that are worth it the first 2 years
because of all the IDPs and all the
because of all the IDP guys and
yep.
But there is a point in there where you get past it. I think it was like past round 5 or something like that, where I was like, okay, after this point, I don't really care. The pick value is so close to 0 that it might as well just be any random dart throw player.
Do you think too, like just looking at it? So I had to pull up Keep Trade Cut as well. Do you have any idea who like the 48th ranked tight end is? Just looking at it, like pick 48 versus the 48. I'd have a tough time ranking 48 tight ends. Like I'd give Eric could do it. I know Eric could.
If you've looked at my tight end ranks, you notice I like got to like 15 or 20 and then
you got to 7. 7. I'm done. 48 is right now Colby Parkinson, which is kind of cool because he's in the news for free agent signing. Mm-hmm. But Harrison Bryant around that range, Tommy Tremble.
Yep.
Like, I play in leagues where you could trade that 412 for one of those tight ends. Like they're just irrelevant. Like they're just, and if you look at the warp, it's going like even over a 2-year window for this pick that I take. I'd probably be better off in this league just trading it for one of those randoms.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even have to be 48, like Will Dissly, tight end 58. Yeah, looking at this, wouldn't you trade the 412 on the clock, even though it has some use, some utility in this league, unlike the lineup league you showed? In this league, shit, I just trade it for one of these guys who might catch a touchdown 1 week, maybe.
Well, and what's really interesting when you're looking at it for this league is, so pick 36. This is where I said my cutoff was, right? Pick 36 is less than the tight end 54. Ooh. So in this league,
which is Albert Okwuegbunam.
Yes. So if you can trade, if you're sitting there with the 401, I don't know who has the 401 in that league. But if they want to send an offer of the 401 for Albert O, they're probably making the right decision by doing that.
And we'd probably dog them and trash them in the league chat, wouldn't we? Like beforehand. Yeah. Like, you're stupid.
Like, is Albert O really why? Like, and then you can do that with any of those tight ends. Those guys where this league values tight ends so much that it's on any tight end that is basically the number 2 tight end on their team. They have value because they have the opportunity to hit your lineup. And what we're seeing is the large majority of those tight end 2s on teams around the NFL in this league specifically are worth more than any 4th round pick.
Nuts. So Barry said here, elaborate a bit more on the rookie 2-year, how it lines up and what years it would pull as you change the year you're running. or the current year rookies in the 23 year, for example?
So the 2-year window is only for players that have a full 2 years in the multi-year select. So currently we have it set for 2019 through 2023. So rookies from the 2019 class, 2020, 2021, and 2022 are what is filling up this rookie WoRP. 2023, because I don't have the second year data on them, they're not going to be included. When we get to the point where we have a full 2024, so essentially 10 months from now, then the 2024 rookies will be brought into the rookie calculation in the multi-year. But if you narrow it down to 2020 to 2021, like Mike's doing right now, you're going to only get the 2020 class.
Those are the only ones that'd be included.
So the only players, so you're going to see heavy bias to who was in the 2020 class. So I if I had to take a guess, that top guy right there is probably going to be like a Jonathan Taylor,
Jamar Chase,
or Jamar Chase, one of those guys. And so you can pick out these individual players when you're narrowing it down like this.
Right.
But I like to keep it is a fully wide sample, 2019 through 2023, just because when I'm looking at multi-year WoRP, when I'm looking at rookie picks, I want an overall value that's not influenced by a single draft class, that's influenced by a single year, things like that.
So if we did like 2020, we're going to get 2020 and 2021. You'll have the full sample size, and it won't include the shitty 2022 class that we saw.
Correct.
That we had to deal with.
Yes.
I like that. Hey, you see a little bit more bias in how the lines are a little bit higher here. We start taking some of the shit away. Jesus.
Yep.
2.308 WoRP. You could get some Justin Jefferson's, Jamar Chases in there.
Yeah, but if you think about where, like in startups, people draft the 101. Like people are drafting the 101 right at the end of the first round. Like, is there really that much of a difference between drafting the 101 and the Jamar Chase and the Justin Jefferson?
No.
Like they're pretty close to each other.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're taking that dart throw by doing the rookie pick. And so what I am doing is I'm saying, if you needed to turn this young dart throw into an old veteran that can produce, what is the equivalent value? And that's what I'm trying to match up.
I get you. So when it's all in the full sample, right, just to make sure that we're clear on this, we're pulling 19, 20, 21, and 22, 23s being omitted.
Correct.
There you go, BDB. Hopefully that answers your question. So we don't see the data yet, but as soon as you get into the 24 season, boom, you'll start to get some data on the second year 23 guys and how they're doing.
Yes. Yeah, and I'll be playing around with the tool a little bit as well in terms of how to incorporate 2024 into the multi-year. Because what we've seen in the past from, the beginning of the 2023 season, when we were 2 weeks in, the WoRP chart looked all kinds of funky because it was, we didn't have you had a couple spike weeks from some guys. You had just a general, this whole position didn't do that well. And I've mentioned a couple times how over the course of a season, the quarterback line just keeps creeping up and up and up and up because quarterbacks are consistent. They make their WoRP comes from the fact that they tend to be the guys that every single week they're just above average. And so that's how the top tier guys get there. Whereas the wide receivers, they have a week that is just like, this wide receiver just won you that week. Unless your team was horrible, that you're going to win it. And so I need to do some experimenting still with how am I going to bring in 2024 during the season into this multi-year WoRP. And I might be open and say, hey, we might not incorporate 2024 into multi-year WoRP until we're like halfway through the season or something like that, just because it could really throw some stuff out of whack.
So it's kind of interesting too when you pull this out, right? We've kind of always had this, and right or wrong, we say just a random first round pick, or whoever the back end of the first round pick is, they're probably worth, a seventh rounder in startups, just generically, right? That's kind of been a thing. You pull this up over a 2-year sample, though, like you have, Coop, right? 120 is 10 rounds deep, right? And that's that's 201, essentially. It's the 13th best player of each class. Shouldn't really be coming off the board until the 10th round. Now, you got some dynasty value factors in there, right? Age is always going to push people up in dynasty startups, and, how safe is their floor if the worst case scenario happened, right? So maybe the 7th round has always kind of been right in the end, right? You see like a 3-round boost for the guy who essentially is the 112 because of the, hey, he's a rookie. Like he usually gets a pass if he performs poorly his first year or suffers a little injury. Like nobody really cares. Jameson Williams types, the Sky Moores of the world, we'll probably do that with like Kendre Miller from this past class. He was a back end first round, early second round pick, kind of in that range. And I imagine if you kind of go and look at startup ADP, he's probably hovering at worst right around that 10 through 12th round.
Yeah.
That's the floor.
I could see him being a little lower just because I think there are some more people out on Kendre, especially him being a running back.
I did a whole fucking podcast telling people to sell him. So.
Yeah. So
I did that with a lot of people, and Tajay Spears seemed to hit for me.
Yeah, and I'm actually pulling up just to see if I can find where he is in the South Harmon ADP. He is currently but you were right. 1203 is where he's going right now.
Kind of felt like the range where I've seen him go quite a few times. So he's got that little bit of a safe floor. Like, hey, this could be the year. This could be the breakout coming, right?
Yeah. But that 1203. So okay, where am I saying that would be in terms of a rookie pick? That's right, like 19 or 18. So we're looking at the 206, the 207. And that's kind of about where people that are into Kendre are valuing him.
What he trades for, right?
Yeah, what he ends up trading for. And so like you can kind of see how a lot of this fits in with where you would expect. I did a lot of like looking at, because there's many different ways I could have gone about this. And I opted for, let's find the rookie pick value that matches the value that you want to get WoRP wise, while not being totally out of whack from dynasty point of view. Because I could have done the 1 year that I was talking about where the rookie picks are way lower because I'm only looking at the rookie year, but you aren't including any dynasty value in that. And I wanted to incorporate that dynasty value of, okay, how are these guys doing? How are they progressing throughout their career in that 2-year window? What are they long-term? Things like that.
It's so weird to say fucking long-term too when we're only talking about 2 years. But anymore in dynasty, long-term is 2 years for a lot of people.
But it's still 2 years where you're like, at the end of these 2 years, this guy is still young. I could have done a 5-year window, but if I did 5 years of data for every single player, then what are running backs after 5 years? They're usually like dying assets. And so I didn't want to extend it out that far, because then you're looking at the full careers, or the full useful fantasy careers of quite a few high value players. And so I'm looking in this smaller window, but still accounting for the fact that, okay, at the end of these 2 years, you're going to have a good asset, assuming it's a good player. If you have a crap player, of course they're going to be a crap asset. But I wanted them to be, this is the value that I would be looking at the end of the second year. And if you got the equivalent WoRP value out of a player for that 1 year you needed them, this is what you need.
I like that. All right, so let's just run in some hypotheticals here and see if we can make the data match up with like how I'm feeling about this class, right? I'm dumb when it comes to this, but so like this year I've been pretty vocal in saying one, probably the best dynasty class I think we're going to see. At least in recent memory for anybody who's been playing since like what, 18, 19. If you've started after that, you know, we've had some good classes. 2020 was a good one. 2021 ended up being good. 22 was meh. Right? That happens when you only have one quarterback who no longer has a fucking job in the first round. That stuff happens, right? It goes down the shitter. But this one looks really good. And tier for me has broken out, like top 7 is a lock. And you're looking, if you can reasonably predict a top 7 player, like this guy is going to be the 5th or 6th best rookie of this entire class over the next 2 years. Right now, that's shaking out like worst case scenario, top 6 round dynasty startup pick. And that's just on production. That doesn't factor in all the hype because of age and youth and, you know, his role's going to get the Garrett Wilson effect. How about that? That's what we'll call it, the Garrett Wilson effect. Garrett Wilson on production obviously probably hasn't hit these, right? Yeah. But he's still being drafted that way because he's young. Aaron Rodgers coming back. He's going to be the next Devontae Adams, that kind of thing. But even on a production level, you're still hitting, what, a top 68? Yeah. 7? And those are on some classes that I don't think personally are as good as this one. That's not a bad fallback to have. If you extend that out to 8, 9, 10, those are top 100 players overall in WoRP in this league. Kind of tells you that maybe we're valuing some of these rookie picks a little bit too low. Maybe. I mean, everybody's going to throw like the bus in there, right? Like QJ last year. It's like, it's trash now. Yeah, you'll have some of those. But if you're right and you hit, I mean, look at that. Over a multi-year WoRP, if you nail the 101, you know, who the best player is, maybe not the 101 pick, but the 101 of that class in the end, that's a top 10 production WoRP over the first 2 years, who is just an absolute unit. I mean, that's a guy that you're talking about at the top half of a startup, right? That's the Jalen Hurts, the Josh Allen, the Patrick Mahomes, the Justin Herbert, the Joe Burrows, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. That's the level you're talking about if you're right. And if you're wrong, production-wise, odds are telling you over this historical period that more than likely you're probably still going to be a top 7 round pick, right? You're still going to be worth that generic first, even after your second year of production. I actually think we might be devaluing rookie first-round picks a little bit more than what we should be.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to making the right choices. So when we're looking at these picks, we see that sharp curve on the rookie picks, like we do at every other position, where there's the top couple guys. It's a steep curve coming down before it starts to flatten off. If you are in a position where, as a rebuilder, you have multiple shots to take in this first round, because what we're looking for is we want to hit the guy that is going to be that first round startup pick in 2 years. The guy that has come in and he was that top 10 overall player. Now, nobody knows exactly who that's going to be. Like we are not savants in that we can say the guy we're picking at 101 is going to be the guy. We just pick the guy at 101 because he's the most likely to be the guy.
Right. The safest in our minds, right?
Or he's the most likely to not screw it all up too.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do it just based on, hey, we just want to save our own skin and we don't want to see this 101 asset that we get go to 0 immediately.
1000%.
And so you want to ideally have multiple of these picks, so that way you have the shot of getting the number 1 overall guy, because we're seeing that the number 1 overall guy is going to be worth it if you can find him. You just have to go and find him.
So hypothetically then, like for that scenario, we talked about a trade back earlier with the later shitty picks and like how you would approach that. So if you had the 101 or the 102 now in this class, would this also like give you a little bit more confidence to trade that for the guy who has the 105 and 107 of this class?
It gives me much more confidence to do that, yes. The only concern that I would potentially have is based on what you think your league is going to do. I'm
The
not
value,
going to be the kind of person that wants to so like say I'm short on quarterbacks. You still need to play to your roster construction. If you need quarterbacks, don't trade yourself out of the range that you can get yourself the good quarterbacks in this class.
Right.
But if I have the choice between am I drafting Caleb Williams or am I drafting JJ McCarthy and Rome Odunze, I'm going to go with JJ McCarthy and Rome Odunze because I have that extra chance of getting that guy that's at the top of this class. And I also have the chance of, okay, even if McCarthy isn't let's say Caleb does turn out to be the top number one quarterback here. So he ends up being that 2.1 point that we have. And then you end up with JJ McCarthy. It ends up being a middling quarterback. But he gives you, let's say he's the 9th best rookie, just to put a value on him. So he gets you 1 WoRP. And then Rome Odunze, he hits decently, but he's wide receiver 12. And wide receiver 12 is 1.3. So if you add up the JJ McCarthy, which was the 1 WoRP, and the Rome Odunze, which was the 1.3, you've exceeded the 2.1 that you got from Caleb Williams.
Right, you doubled it up. Yeah.
And what you did was you reduced your risk of everything going to 0. Caleb Williams still was by far the best pick of the draft. You're still probably feeling like, man, I traded away the best player out of this draft in order to get 2 guys that were nowhere near as good. But in terms of WoRP, in terms of how that actually goes into points on your team, you still ended up winning out. And so that's always the harder thing to look at in roster construction is, hey, you have this absolute stud. As long as you don't have so much depth that these depth guys aren't able to make your lineup, you're going to always be better accruing more depth value than you are aiming for the studs. That's just a best ball thing. When you look at lineup, that's why you see the line is steeper. You want to look at getting those high value guys. You might be less inclined to do that trade back from 101 to 105 and 107 just because you are so heavily relying on those guys actually doing well. If you end up with Rome Odunze, you draft him at the 107 and he ends up being a wide receiver 45, he's on the fringe of uselessness for you. And so you don't want to end up having that player. Whereas in best ball, you end up with wide receiver 45 and you're still getting a 0.6 WoRP out of them. That's still pretty decent. You didn't fall all the way to 0.
I like that too. I mean, it's just how you roster construct specifically, and that's how you use everything together, right? All right, it's a lineup start 9. I need to go for the home runs, right? I don't care that if you talked about like Caleb Williams, and we can all agree you've probably got a pretty safe floor, or whoever that 101 is going to be. You still probably want to hold on to that lottery ticket of like, this is the one I feel the best about smashing. And it's going to be the biggest WoRP difference maker for me. Where, yes, in these like best ball leagues, it's sometimes you just want to take one good and turn it into 3 mids, and the 3 mids is going to beat the shit out of the one good every time. Like this is how it goes. I do have some ideas that I want to try specifically for me, just because you know how I like to push shit to the limits all the time, and either it works or it don't. But I'm going to find out for sure, especially with these best ball leagues. From a portfolio aspect, is taking some of those top picks and splitting them up into multiple shots, even in lineup leagues, Scoop, like even in the smaller lineup leagues. Because like you said, I mean, we've touched on this multiple times. We don't actually know in a 2-year sample size who the number 1 player is going to be. We probably say right now, you got some notables in the clubhouse, right? Caleb, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors. Like, I'll give you 4 names. But at the end of the day, in 2 years, if we were to go back and look at this or look at some people's takes, you'd be like, man, Roma Dunze was the best wide receiver out of there. Why didn't we see that, right? Mm-hmm. There were drafts where Jamar Chase back in the day was falling to what, 5th, 6th, 7th pick. Mm-hmm. Wasn't the clear-cut number one of the class. We were taking other things. It happens. So maybe from a portfolio aspect and just play the odds is like, what if I am wrong? Instead of taking Marv at the 102 in this league, maybe I get a 8th, 9th, and 10th rounder. It's outside my comfort range, but you give me 3 shots at it, I'm going to take my 3 shots versus your 1 shot, and hopefully I'll be right, even in a lineup league like a start 9. So I think that's probably some of the aggressive approaches I'm going to take with this. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of lends into when I look at it, I go, well, shit, man, even if I'm wrong, I don't hit the 1. Maybe I hit the 5. Maybe I hit the 5, the 10, and the 32nd. People look at you and go, oh, the 32nd rookie, good job. Way to take QJ. Does it really matter, though, if you hit the 5? Doesn't the 5 massively outweigh the shit that you got from the 32nd? I would say yes. I would say yes, it does. And this is kind of what you were alluding to, and kind of how I like to play it, too, is multiple shots at the dartboard. But as long as they're within reason, right? Yep. I don't want a whole 3rd round of rookie picks because I'm going to have a shit ton of misses. Shit ton. If I got 3 first-rounders, though, 4 first-rounders, shit, even if I miss on 1 or 2 of them over a 2-year window, if I hit on the other 2, no one gives a fuck about the 2 misses. They don't matter. Yeah. I think I kind of alluded to that 4D pod when we were going through that team I rebuilt from winning the championship in 2020. Like, you go back and listen to some of those trades I made, you're like, Jesus, Mike, what an L. That's a terrible trade. And I'm with you. It was garbage. But you don't have to hit them all. And you could have some giant swings and misses. But if your hits are really good, you have a key hit here or there, you have that, getting Amon-Ra St. Brown, boom. You're right back in it. It outweighs the misses tenfold, which is nuts to say because we don't really look at it. We like to clown everybody in league chat when you see a deal go through and you're like, oh, you took an L. And then you look at that deal in 2 years and you're like, shit, man. This guy broke even on this part and absolutely killed him on this one. So I think Rookie Pick and Rookie WoRP is kind of the same thing when I look at it, just on the service level here without diving too far into it.
And what I see a lot with when you're talking that strategy of like, oh, these trades look horrible 2 years later, the best dynasty players are the ones that don't let the 40% that they missed on eat at them. They win their 60%. If you're 50-50 on trades, you need to have a solid process that you're moving towards that's hopefully helping you build value in the league. But what if you can win 55% of your trades, 60% of your trades? Like, it doesn't sound like you're winning a whole lot when you say the numbers like that, because we're used in school to being like, oh, 55% is an E, 60% is barely a D. But that's actually so much more than enough to be able to, over time, you're going to win out on these trades. And it helps a lot to have them be in a process, be a part of how does WoRP evaluate your league? What positions are better than other positions? How can you take advantage of the league market to accumulate points on your team without sending away value? And so that's the sort of balance that you're trying to fight anytime you're making a trade. I want to either accrue value and shed some points that hopefully I can turn that value into points at a later time, or I'm trying to shed value to accrue points. Those are the 2 kinds of trades that you're trying to make. And if you are doing the right thing for your team more than half the time, as long as you keep trading, as long as you keep making those correct moves, you're going to win out. Even if the trade looks like a loss at the time, if it looks like a loss in a year, it might look like a massive win in 2.
I can bind that one. One other thing I wanted to talk about or get your opinions on too, and talk through this with the people. We got a great chat going on here too in the YouTube chat. You guys are killing it. But let me ask you about this, right? Because we're in peak rookie season right now. I mean, we had NFL free agency going on now, so it's a little bit of a break from nauseating just talking rookies. But we all kind of know we play in dynasty leagues. Like, picks are on their way up, and they might be close to the apex right now. But right before the NFL draft is like the prime time, right? We always say that's when they're worth the most. One thing I want people to realize, and when you go and look at Rookie WoRP, right, this isn't going off of, any current dynasty value of rookie picks. One thing that we have to keep in mind is you're a contender late in the season, late into 2023, and you send away that late first, right? Keep in mind what you're sending away, potentially. So when we talk about people just dealing their picks willingly, it's fine at the end of the year, you kind of lock that in. I do this shit too, right? It's the 110, it's the 111, 112 at worst. This is what I'm sending away. This is what I'm dealing away. In the long run, Rookie WoRP is telling me that I'm sending away potentially, realistically, probably a top 100 player with insulated dynasty value. And if I'm wrong, right, that's a Justin Herbert, right? Somebody takes that at the 110. Somebody takes a Justin Jefferson at the 110. I'm sending away a top 10 fucking dynasty asset. In production, not just dynasty value. In production.
Yep.
I think that's something that more people need to take into consideration too, because I've dealt that 110, that 111, that 112, week 12, week 13 all the time, Coop. And you never think about it. And the player you get back, you're like, it's fine. It's a 1-year rental. Don't give a shit. Long-term outlook of dynasty is pretty fucking detrimental to you unless you're getting something really good. Now, on the other side of it, you got a lot of teams that are rebuilding. You should welcome that shit with open arms.
Yep.
I want to buy your Mike Evans for what's going to be a late pick. Done. Here, take it. Don't
and if
give
anything,
a shit
you should be
at all.
more aggressive about it too.
1,000%. You should be gobbling up all those contenders late first. Doesn't really matter, man. You got a wide receiver too. You could like him. You could love Brandon Ayuk. I fucking love Brandon Ayuk. I should have sent him fucking away on all my rebuilders that I had him. Every single one of them. And I should have gobbled up every goddamn 10, 11, 12 I could get my hands on and not even think twice about it.
Yep.
But I tell you, if that trade popped up on the trade show, we'd be like, well, I see it for both sides. I really like Brandon Ayuk, but it's nice to have the rookie pick, but I'm probably going to side with the Brandon Ayuk side here. Right? We do this shit all the time. Mm-hmm. This is telling you, I love it when you look at multi-year samples. You take the names out of it. You take a lot of the bias out of it. And let me caveat, too, before people get crazy. You can miss. I'm not saying you can't. You can miss. But if you do this process over and over and over again, you're going to have one of those hits that far outweighs every Quentin Johnson you've ever taken in your fucking dynasty career, bud. Every single one of them.
So I want to look at one last league just to point out how sometimes it can be different. All right? Kyle Pitts is back.
He's back, man. Baby. Kyle Pitts is back.
We'll see how much Kirk Cousins loves you this year. But turn over to my screen here, Mike. I want to look at shit IDP 101. All right. I have one thing that I am actually regretting from this league. Shit. And what I'm actually regretting from this league is not having traded away my turned out to be 111. I held on to that pick because I was convinced that by holding on to this 111, everyone was devaluing the rookie picks because they weren't confident in drafting defensive players. Mm-hmm. And they weren't going to give me the value because I was valuing it like, hey, this really should be a 9th or 10th round in a startup. And 9th or 10th round puts us, hey, we're looking at the one we're looking at the 120 at the latest there. And we're looking a little earlier than that. But look at the rookie pick value here. The 120 is right where the 9th rookie pick is.
Right.
The 111, which I was in the championship game trying to shop this pick to see if I could get anyone that I thought was equivalent. Like that 111 ended up being the 146. That's a whole 2 rounds later. And if I had managed to win the week, that would have been another 2 rounds after that. And so I ended up shorting myself on the ability to go and push in and win this championship because I held on to this pick thinking it was so valuable. Whereas in reality, this is actually telling me, hey, because of the way this league works, you're going to have a lot of these other players that are actually pushing down the value of the rookie picks because the rookie players are not doing as well because the defensive players don't help out on as much in the first 2 years. And so then so my regret in this league is when I'm going for it, I want to be more willing to shed these draft picks. There were some people in the league that did shed those draft picks much earlier. You were one of them.
Yeah. Fuck them picks.
But I am much more I am much more interested in now trying to push in this league specifically. It's in terms of where I was valuing them versus the rest of the league.
So I think that's the beauty of the WoRP tool is pulling individual leagues and settings and tailoring it to your specific league, right? We just looked at 2 far different ones, right? We look at Shit Savage, which is all offensive players and juice tight end scoring, and everything kind of falls in line where it's like, yeah, like late in the season, there's no fucking way I'm going to send away my first for just this average guy. You go look at an IDP league where we're starting, 23, 24 players? 12 of them on defense? Juiced defensive scoring, where linebackers, just fill-in linebackers are having 40, 50-point weeks in fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
We can send them picks away. Send them picks away. You don't give a shit if you get into Troy Franklin or not. Doesn't matter to you. You don't care. Just give me that line. Give me that Ivan Pace. Give me all the Ivan Pace. He's scoring fantasy points. I'll take him. And people clown the shit out of you. How dare you buy him? But it's true. Mm-hmm. Fuck those picks in that league. Send them all away. Every one of them. Even if you got the 101, right? Comes in at the 10th player. But look at the massive fall off, right? 10, 17, then 40.
Yes.
17 to 40 from pick 2 to 3.
You are relying on the fact that you have chosen the right player. And that is, we've talked about it, that is so hard to do. And in this league, the punishment for choosing wrong is even stronger.
Yeah. Just because there's so many other good players that'll slot in that best ball league. So many good defensive players. So many guys that are just going to have a, 10, 15 tackle week. Get 3 sacks, right?
Yep.
Shit, heaven forbid they Khalil Mack it and have, 100 and something? 120 in that league?
Yeah.
That's 6 sack week? Jesus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just send them rookie picks away. Would you pay first for Khalil Mack? I will give you the fucking 103 in a heartbeat for Khalil.
Well, and what's funny is, do you remember the trade I declined?
Was it that?
It was my 24 first and my 25 first for Khalil Mack and somebody else.
Oh. You want
and
that
I am now
back, don't
kicking myself that I did not take that.
Could have had it.
Because I should have taken that. I would have been so much closer to having won the championship in this league. And I just didn't end up going for it.
Right. Yeah, it's easy. I like how DB's in here too. Just talking about this. It's a good one to go through. But just league specific for me is going to be so important, right? It's going to be league specific. You're going to have to pull up the WoRP tool and you're going to have to look and go, do rookie picks in this league actually matter? If the answer is yes, I'm going to be inclined late season as a contender to say you can't have them. And on my rebuilding teams, I'm going to be gobbling them up left and right. Like, damn, Mike just sent away Brandon Ayuk again. Just got the 110, 111. What's he know? In the IDP league, though, you go and pull that up? Would I be doing that? Fuck no. Fuck no. I don't want to buy him. Coop, no. Kiss my ass. Can Conversely, though, if I'm a contender in that league, it's like if I find that sucker who thinks that first rounder is going to be great, here you go, bud. You take it. League-dependent WoRP. League-dependent WoRP. Talking about it in a, nutshell. Trying to give an open approach to everybody. DB hits on a lot of things.
Yeah, one last thing that I want to show here too. So the beauty of us having a team here at South Harmon is we have other people that make cool tools. And so I got JCap to add something to the lab that I was specifically, it was bothering me when I was looking through this data this past weekend. I was trying to use it and I was like, man, I'm having to flick and like type and look all these players up, right? So I had a trade offer come in that was somebody was offering like, I think it was the 102 straight up for Kyler Murray or in one of my leagues. And I was like, all right, looking at this tool, do I want Kyler Murray or do I want the 102? So I was comparing, all right, the 102, this league, it's going to be a little off, but let's just pretend, all right, we've got, let's pretend, all right, we're lining up to QB5. If we go to the lab and you look at your team, there's now a position rank column, and that is the position rank of that player in dynasty value. So Kyler Murray is number 10, and so in this league in the shit IDP, I would know it's worth it to get the 102 and send away Kyler Murray. And so just from a pure WoRP value, assuming, of course, that I'm choosing the right player.
Yes.
That's where you have to always put that assuming clause at the end.
Yeah.
And so so in terms of, okay, if I was a contender and I had the 102 and I wanted to send that away, getting Kyler Murray back, it would not be enough for me. I want to try and get a little bit of a better player in terms of a WoRP value in order to get more WoRP onto my team as a result. And so that's what I was. So adding in this position rank column, it's really useful for any league that you're in. So you can easily see, okay, Justin Herbert, QB7, come over to the WoRP tool. Where does that line up against the rookie pick? Justin Herbert in the league that I had pulled up there was this Quarantine Dynasty League. So I'll pull that back up. Justin Herbert is ever so slightly below the 101. But you have to account for, hey, this 101 is I don't know for sure that this guy's going to end up the 101.
Correct. You get that built in. Right.
So Justin Herbert, QB7 is right here. He's actually a little bit below the 102. So if I was trading away Justin Herbert, okay, I'm not going to do a linear path between the 101 and Justin Herbert and say I'm the 101 is higher. I always want the 101 over Justin Herbert. You have to, as with everything WoRP, you have to apply a little bit of a dynasty spin on it. Yep. But if I see this 101 and somebody's offering me a top 4 quarterback, smash accept.
Done.
Just done. I'm immediately finished with it. And it's helpful for if I'm not a contender in this league. My team is horrible. You saw it when it was on the lab. But if I was trying to compete and say I had the 111, I now know, can I target somebody that's going to get me about 1 WoRP this next coming year? So I can look at, okay, dynasty value. Is there a veteran in this 28 to 35 range that I can go out and get? And I'm sure if you go out and you look at Keep Trade Cut, you can find some veterans in that range that are going to do well. And it can, or even better, can I find a veteran here that is valued as a late first that I can send my late first for? And then I know that I am getting immense value for WoRP for this pick for this coming year. And so that's where I'm seeing this this tool be used over the next couple months. Is I have this rookie pick. I am a contender. How do I turn this into the dynasty value of a player that's putting points on my team right now?
I like that. Like a good example would be like a Deebo Samuel in that range.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They value him as like wide receiver 29 or 30, somewhere in that range.
Yep.
You know his WoRP though, if he stays healthy, is much better than that.
For sure. Yeah, and I think
you're talking what, top 10 at worst.
Yeah, I think I had a trade that I posted in the trades channel that, if I remember right, it was Judy in the 209 for Deebo Samuel, and it was either in this league or a different one where it I know what it was. It was that first one we were looking at, the Cinema League Dynasty, because I remember I'm competing in that one, and Judy was he's not that great on the wide receiver chart. We know that he's pretty low. He's
Junkie.
He's not going to do that much. But the 209 is almost nothing.
It's almost worthless in this league.
Like,
yeah, this is the first one you had up, right?
Yeah, the first one that I had up, where we were talking, hey, there's only 30 picks total that are even worth anything. 209 is down here at 0.3 WoRP. And Deebo Samuel has the ability to, if he's healthy, being up all the way up here in the like back end wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2 range, that you're getting such immense value out of him. And so I ended up going in on that trade after consulting in with the WoRP tool, being like, yeah, this 209 does mean nothing. And I probably could have gone even crazier and been like, hey, value-wise, in terms of who these players are in this league and everything, probably could have done it with like the 203.
Yeah.
But dynasty-wise, you don't need to send the 203 to get Deebo Samuel right now. Like, you can send Judy in the 209. You don't need, and so so knowing that, okay, I'm able to take some of these values, add them together, do a little bit of napkin math, and be like, hey, this is the right move for me in this league with where my team is lined up, the fact that I'm ready to go, ready to compete. That's where this feature is going to help you a lot this offseason, is build that contender off of your 23 picks. Hold on to those 24s for the flexibility, because then you can come back to this tool during the season to get the right WoRP guys. But during the off season, we were talking about it. The 23 picks, I'm saying 23 and 24. I'm meaning 24 and 25.
I get you.
The 2024 picks, you don't want to be making those if you're trying to compete this year. You want to be finding the right players, and this is helping you find the right guys to target and making sure you're getting the WoRP value out of the draft pick that you have.
I like it. So if you're a rebuilder, then now too, like maybe targeting those, like in this league specifically, targeting those late first, probably not the greatest idea with your players. But as you get into the season, right, more and more taking that dice roll of a random 25 first, right?
I want to try and right now, if I was rebuilding in this league, I would be trying to convince the manager to send me their 25 and they keep their 24. If they've got the 110, I'm going to be like, can I just get your 25 first instead? Because they might convince themselves that 110 they have this year is going to help their team, and really it's not. And instead, I might end up with an even better pick for the following year.
Right. Just the variance then that comes into play too. They have a bad year, they get players hurt, etc.
Yep. And I want to bet on that variance rather than being forced to make a pick here at the end of this draft.
What about hypothetically, though, speaking with this one too, just playing devil's advocate here. You're already rebuilding, okay? Let's say you do get a Mike Evans. Let's use a Mike Evans in this situation. Still got a Mike Evans on your team. Somebody's offering you the 110 for him, right? We'll stay with the 110 in this league. You already have the, let's say, 102, 105, the 108. Now this gives you another pick. Now you get a little bit more leverage on there. You get more shots at the dartboard. Is it more beneficial, even though like you look at it and you go, well, 110 straight up, I don't know. Like I'd prefer the 25. Would you actually prefer maybe getting that fourth pick, that fourth shot at the dartboard, right, to hit one of those guys who are 1 or 2?
I am going to say yes, but the answer is not going to necessarily come from WoRP. The answer is going to come from dynasty principles.
Gotcha.
If you have Mike Evans right now and you're a rebuilding team, by the time you actually are a contender, let's say it's 2 or 3 years down the line, is Mike Evans still going to be useful to your team in 2 or 3 years? A betting person is going to say no, that he's not going to be useful. So if you can get good, solid value right now for the opportunity to have somebody who will be useful in 2 years, you take that opportunity. And so the 110 is very fair value for Mike Evans. In my mind, it's actually probably a little more than you would need to pay for Mike Evans. I would be considering, even in a league like this, like if I'm getting like the 112, the 201, like hey, I'm fine going down into that range and just trying to get myself in the dartboard of, can I find the 7th best player in this class? Because in 2 years, that 7th best player is going to be doing way more for my team than Mike Evans is. And if I guess wrong and I get the 30th best player in this class, Mike Evans isn't that useful for me in 2 years anyway. So I haven't really lost anything. I got a lottery ticket, and my lottery ticket ended up scratched it off, and I got nothing.
I like that idea too, right? Where you kind of incorporate the dynasty principles, right? 1-for-1 vacuum. I'm with you. I'm with DB too. You know, if it's Mike Evans for the 110, let's say, even though right now it's probably 50-50, you know, like you said, might be too good to pass up. If that's my only pick for this draft, pass. Like, my odds are probably shitty. Let me just hold on to Mike Evans for another 5 months, 6 months, and then I'll sell him. Or let me try to get somebody's 25. But if it's adding already to a portfolio that I have, right, strengthening my percentage, my odds, right, I don't really care whether that's the one that's the lottery ticket, because it made the odds of the other ones also better, right? It's kind of the principle of, if you ever watch that, what is that, 21? Say, Kevin Spacey movie, right? Counting cards and blackjack, right? The odds of when you're on a game show and they you pick a door. And they say, would you like to keep this door, or would you like to go to another one? You always say yes to the other one, right? Because the odds are multiplicated. They're boosted. It's 33% on the first one. Now you're at 66% by picking a second door. Same kind of principle for these rookie picks, right? If I'm going to add them up, sure. Fuck that Mike Evans, you know, the 110 thing. See ya. Gone. Like, I will multiply it. But let's say I only had the 111, Coop. Like, in that scenario, right? You had the 111, somebody's offering you the 110 for Mike Evans. Where would you fall on that spectrum? Would you be holding a Mike Evans, or would you go, all right, let me get the 110 too? I think in my case, I'd probably say no for dynasty principles, because I don't already have one that's up at the top. Like, I'm really hoping to get lucky now on 2. But if I already got one towards the top, I got one in the middle, and now I got one at the end, I'm like, all right, made the one in the middle and the one at the top even better. If I'm just making 2 at the end better, it doesn't really feel as good to me.
It's all context for me, because we're talking, okay, I only have the 111 right now, but I could trade away Mike Evans for the 110. Why do you only have the 111?
Bad decisions. Yes.
You probably have a team that has like fallen apart really hard.
Failed contender.
You traded away your pick, and then you ended up the 111 because you had traded away somebody right at the end of the season to the guy that actually did make it there. In that scenario, I am I'm willing to go ahead and continue the double down, continue the, okay, can I try and get more from Mike Evans? If Mike Evans does, in fact, this coming year, he starts doing really well again. The Baker Mayfield's got his long-term contract, and so he's just lighting the world on fire. And Mike Evans is right up there with the top guys. I might be able to get somebody, if I've held on to him, get somebody's 25 first who thinks that they're Mike Evans away from competing for the championship, and they take it, and then they get to the playoffs and they get bounced all the way out, and it becomes the 107. Like, I'd much rather take the opportunity on that than investing into the 110 in this draft. But if I already, it kind of comes down to, all right, how does my team rebuild? If you try to rebuild off of having like one pick in each draft class, or like 2 picks in each draft class, that is much harder to rebuild from, because not only is it you're having to pick the right players, you're having to your players are like out of sync of each other. You have 2 guys in this draft class that are still rookies, and you have 2 guys the draft class before that are finally coming into their prime, and you have 2 guys the class before that are finally that are at their prime now. But unless you got lucky and you hit that number 1 guy, you might end up with like 6 guys that are like, yeah, these are great, like 6th to 7th round startup picks, but you don't have anybody that's a world beater. But if you can jam all of that into one class and you get 6 start throws, theoretically you've got like a 50% chance of hitting the number 1 overall guy. And if you miss the number 1 overall guy, you probably got the number 2. And if you can get yourself the number 2 and the number 3, even if you miss the number 1, now you have, okay, I've got a 2nd round startup pick. I've got a 3rd round startup pick. And then you still have a couple of those other guys that are still the 7th round in the startup, the 6th round and the 9th round. And you combine all of that together, and now you have a team that actually has a window to contend. And so I'm trying to put my picks into that window. So it kind of comes down to more of a dynasty principle for me. That Mike Evans for the 110, if that's letting me load up on 2024, then great, I want to do that. But if I am already basically out of the 110 because I sent everything away and my team absolutely failed as a contender and it is horrible, I need to sell assets. Everyone knows you need to sell assets, and those offers will still be there come September. And you need to play for 2025 or 2026. Like, maybe you need to send Mike Evans away for 2026 first, because that's actually the better play, because you can still load up on the 2026 picks if not everybody in your league has sent them away yet. Or after the 2024 draft happens, the 2027 picks become available, and you start pushing everything into the 2027 class. But you need to find a way to stack everything into that one draft class. That way you have the good shots of getting the high value rookies. And so that way everybody comes into their prime at the same time. You don't want to have a bunch of guys that are where you have 2 guys that aren't there yet, 2 guys that are kind of going past it, 2 guys that are right in the middle of it. Like, that just doesn't add up, and you end up being like that middling team, and you're always stuck with not being able to do exactly what you want.
On board, man. I love it. Hour and a half. Jesus. Feels like we go another 3 hours, but we got to get out of here. We got to let the people go to bed. It's a Tuesday night. Coop, you've been sitting on this rookie WoRP for a while. Got it out now. Perfect timing. We were able to do a show on it. Really appreciate all the work that you put into the WoRP tool. Absolutely fantastic. If you guys want to check that out, southharmonff.com. Go look it up. Running a promo too. 20% off. 20% off. Banner at the top. All you got to do is click it. Look at that.
Yep.
Click here. Done. Lab is free. You can check that out anytime you want. But the WoRP tool, you need it. Need it. Rookie Pick WoRP will change the way you do stuff. Right? We had multi-year WoRP. Now we got Rookie Pick WoRP. Is there anything else that you're sitting on? Anything else that you're working on behind the scenes? You got a little teaser for the people? By the way, Koopa will be having his own podcast very, very soon. Very soon. So make sure you check that out as soon as that drops.
Yeah, I'll tease the podcast a little bit here. Episode 1. What is the most common Dynasty League?
Yeah.
So
18,
come in and listen
one quarterback.
To that. And then as for WoRP, what is coming to it, you might not see it necessarily here as part of this exact WoRP tool, but I am going to tease a little bit that it's been talked about publicly that lots of people want it. I'm gonna be dabbing my feet into a little bit of college stuff here soon. I've already started working on it. I'm gonna be figuring that out, and you all can see anytime you click that button, like, okay, how can it takes like 10 seconds for it to load up, even if we've already pre-calculated the league and that, just because it has to load so much data. Well, college has 133 teams, not 32. So there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be worked on that. Some of that might roll. Some of the stuff I learned while doing that might roll into this tool as well. So
love it, man. We're gonna make a whole website happy. Whole campus2canton.com. Shout out to those guys. You can also check Adam and I over there. We're doing Canton Bound for them every single week. It's a great time. Yep. But I'm excited too. C2C is something I want to dive way more into, and WoRP would change that game. Not gonna lie. This change a lot of how you view your campus rosters for sure. And college fantasy football is becoming a big thing. Can't negate that. Shout out Brandon Sanders for that. Mm-hmm. Loves his college fantasy. Gonna help us out too. Maybe we'll find the next Puka. Never know.
Maybe so.
Never know. Do you want to do the thing? Do you want to do the Adam saying to end it? Like, I don't feel right doing it. I can't do it. It's not for me.
All right, so everyone, just remember, when you're playing chess, play 40 chess.
Fucking nailed it, my man. Thanks, Coop. Thanks, everybody, for tapping in. We'll see y'all back here same time, same place next week for the 40 Chess Dynasty Football Podcast. We love y'all. We're out of this thing. Peace.